Archie, I wanted to ask you now what Koeman just said about having to change the way and adapt to different styles of managers. Now, without Robert Lewandowski, can Nagelsmann take this opportunity to change Bayern's whole way of playing?
I think he already has started to do that, particularly in the second half of the last season when Bayern's form on the pitch tanked, particularly the performances, not necessarily the results, not enough for them to lose the Bundesliga title. But it's actually, I think, going to help more players come to the forefront because Lewandowski led the way. He was carrying the team on his shoulders in terms of goals. And I think that was partly what Lewandowski wasn't feeling appreciated for at the club. However, no one in Munich or in Germany expected Bayern to do the business that they have done this summer, particularly to get in somebody like Sadio Mane, a world star who is at the top of his game still. That was very much a message from Hasan Salihamidzic, the sporting director, saying that I am good enough at my job to be here. And there's been a lot of scrutiny over that. And now the message is, it's over to you, Julian Nagelsmann. I have bought and brought the players here. It's up to you to find the right system. And Nagelsmann is rated as the top German coach of his time, of his age. I mean, there's not many in their early 30s right now who are in that kind of position. So, of course, that's the case. But he is seen in Germany as having the ability to get alongside somebody like Jurgen Klopp, not on a personality level necessarily, but the way that Thomas Tuchel has done at Chelsea as well. He is seen as a future Champions League winning coach. Now he needs to prove it.
Yeah, and speaking of Jurgen Klopp, Stevie, would you see maybe a similarity between Nagelsmann, what he could do with Bayern Munich, and Klopp with Liverpool?
I think Nagelsmann would love to be able to copy and produce the type of football that Liverpool do. But in order for Bayern to do that, this is a rip it up and start again. You know, this is a... They're going to have to spread the goals around more because they don't have Lewandowski. That means that players, or more players, are going to have to get in the box. The wide guys, people like Coman, are going to have to get themselves in the box when it's coming from the other side. They're going to have to get Goretzka more in the box. I know sometimes he likes to get in there, but he's going to have to be in there way more often than he used to be. So basically, the mindset of every forward-thinking player, and maybe more, is going to be about getting in the penalty area. Because they can't all stand out and watch the way they did, because they had Lewandowski. This is a rip it up and start it over again.
I don't know, I get the sense that, I mean, Arch alluded to it, already late in the season, Nagelsmann fiddled with a few things, obviously leaving Lewandowski in there. I don't think it quite works that you say 40 goals are gone. Where are those 40 goals going to come from? I mean, we already have 23 goals in Mane.
Oh, well, so what then?
Well, because...
You've got to spread them around. They don't have a guy who's going to score... You know, you're hoping that Mane scores 20 goals.
Well,
right?
he scored 23.
So then now you need another 20 plus.
Well, wait. Mane scored 23 goals playing in the Premier League, right? Which supposedly is far more competitive than the Bundesliga. So maybe there's worth a few more goals.
Okay.
But then you're really only 10 goals short.
No, you're 20 goals short.
Why?
Well, because Lewandowski got 40. So if he scores, let's say he scores 20.
Wait, he scored 23.
So where's the other goal? So you've got...
He scored 23.
You've got 40 from him, and let's say you get 40 from the rest of the players. There's your 80. Take 40 away. So all these other players are going to have to score more, Gab.
Right, but...
They're going to have to score more.
I think Nagelsmann's now going to change the system so that those players have more chance to get into the box. As you've been mentioning, they've got to get into the box. Right. Because when you play with Lewandowski as an out-and-out centre-forward, he played through the middle and they played with wide players, and Müller tried to come in and support him as much as possible. I think there's going to be more fluidity about the way they play. They might even play with wing-backs who are wingers, like Koeman and Gnabry at times.
But they could play with Mane through the middle and Coleman through the middle. They've both done it before. It's not... I mean, I think we should trust... If there is a creative manager out there who's you know, he turned Nkunku into a goal machine, you know, starting out as a midfielder. He's done all sorts of different things.
And I would say...
all sorts of... I would trust the Nagelsmann, right?
I think Nagelsmann's pleased that Lewandowski's gone. Because now Nagelsmann can do what... Because the team originally was Hansi Flick's team, and he couldn't change it because they changed it too much. And as Archie said, halfway through the season, he started to experiment. They started to play with back three on occasions. They started to mix up the formations and the personnel. And I think he'll do that a lot. It's now down to Nagelsmann to make sure he gets everything right from game to game, and that's going to be interesting.
And if you keep Joshua Kimmich and Thomas Muller on side, and you tighten up the back, which I think was more of an issue last season than goals, then I think you're halfway there.
But everything's dead easy on paper, by the way. I can get a sheet of paper and go, oh, he's going to do this and he's going to make his runs in there. It don't work that way. You know, Archie's saying about how...
Archie, tell him that Julian Nagelsmann is a good manager.
Archie's talking about how last season he didn't perform well because he was tinkering and doing all these things that he's going to do. So they've already shown that they're not quite in tune with it. And if they start the season like that, then all the players are going to be, hold on a minute, why don't we go back to what we were doing before? Because we couldn't do it at the end of last season and we're not doing it now. You've got to convince the players. It's not just a case of Nagelsmann. You need to convince all the players that what they were doing, they were so successful, you've got to completely change it. That's not easy, Gab.
Go ahead, Archie.
There's a couple of points at play here. I think that Nagelsmann's authority took a bit of a battering towards the end of last season for the ignominious, if I said that right, exit that they took in the Champions League at the hands of Villarreal, and how they weren't able to score more than one in that game. But we've seen at Leipzig, as Gab says, that Nagelsmann has been able to play this sort of fluid football going forward. He got 28 Bundesliga goals out of Timo Werner. And I know that Chelsea fans' jaws will hit the floor when they think about that at certain times. So Nagelsmann, he does have this real ability when it comes to practicing these attacking patterns and doing things that coaches can't get out of their players on a regular basis, I would say. And he's been at the forefront of that revolution. The thing for me is, does he have the respect to get that out of the Bayern players, to get them to do what he wants in the coming season? And you talk about the amount of goals they're losing there, Stevie. What I would say is that they've been knocking around the 100-goal mark in the Bundesliga for the past few seasons. So losing a couple won't be a problem. As Gab says, the defence has been a real problem, and they spent a hell of a lot of money on it now.
They conceded the least amount of goals in the Bundesliga last year. So it's not that bad, is it, the defence? You know, I mean,
it's more about a feeling, though. It's more about the feeling that their performances were giving in Europe as well. I remember that first leg away at Villarreal. It could have certainly been more than the 1-0 that it was there. Away at RB Salzburg as well. They were fortunate to get away with the draw there. It's in those big games that they need their defenders to turn up. And Dayot Upamecano hasn't looked at that level of progressing. He's got to now fight for his position at centre-back with Luca Hernandez and Matthias de Ligt. And they've also made major upgrade at right-back, I think, with Nusser Mazraoui as well. So I think that it's encouraging to have that kind of drive from the right-hand side, because they've always had a question mark over Benjamin Pavard. Sure, World Cup winner with France, but he's never quite delivered the goods with Bayern. So I think there are improvements around this team. And with Lewandowski as well, I think there was a bit of a tricky point with him, because I remember being in the stadium loads of times last season and starting to see Lewandowski drifting out to collect the ball out on the left-hand side and thinking, I don't think Lewandowski's going to like doing this. Lewandowski wants to just be in the middle and wait for him to be fed. And I think that was actually a friction point as well between Nagelsmann and Lewandowski, but also to have Lewandowski gone, it really opens up, as you were alluding to, Stuart, this idea that it's now Nagelsmann's Bayern, because Flick, having won the Champions League with Bayern in a system where it was pretty much set what everybody was going to do in a 4-2-3-1, now it gives more creative license to Julian Nagelsmann to see what he does with this side. And with Sadio Mane coming in, that is a different force than Robert Lewandowski, and Nagelsmann has all the ideas to use it.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.